Lupus LA would like to thank our generous sponsors for their support of the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. We thank GSK for their focus on autoimmune disease and their continued support of Lupus LA. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lupus LA podcast, Your Story, Our Fight. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, and thanks, of course, to our sponsor, GSK Pharmaceuticals, for allowing us to tell these incredible lupus stories. I'm under the weather today, but it's okay because we have a doctor with us today, so we're in good shape. But I want to introduce you all to Dr. Shabnam Esmailzadeh. I think I got that right. Did I do okay, Shabnam? Perfect. Excellent. You have a doctorate in Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and we're going to be talking a lot today about Western medicine and Eastern medicine and your personal lupus story and how it's led you to this path that you're on, helping autoimmune patients with chronic illness. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
Of course. So tell me a little bit about your childhood, because I know you were diagnosed at 18, but tell me a little bit about the person you were pre-diagnosis.
Absolutely. Well, I was raised in Sweden, and pretty active child, very curious, always full of questions, wanted to know a lot, playful. And when I say playful, I did a lot of theater. So I would create my own little shows, bringing my siblings into it. And then we would perform from our parents or for school. A lot of times we did it for school, and loved doing it. And then I moved here.
You moved to the United States. And so tell me a little bit about when you think you noticed that your symptoms started to appear.
Well, once I moved here, I was about 16 years old. And in order to start high school, I had to go and do the MMR vaccines again. So after doing the vaccines, I started to feeling symptoms like achiness, but nothing that was catching my attention at that age until about probably a year into it, where my aches and pains started to get a little bit more. And then during one episode where I went to San Francisco and I fell down the stairs going to the BART.
Right.
After that, the symptoms got really bad. I was in a lot of pain, and the pain wasn't getting better. I kept going to the ER, and they couldn't figure out what it was going on because all they did was regular blood tests. And I remember by the third time I went to the ER, it was a young doctor, and he came to my side and said, "Hey, listen, your blood doesn't show anything, but I know there is something going on with you." And he wanted me to go to my regular doctor and have them test for multiple different conditions. And one of them was lupus, which I did. And then the lupus came back positive.
And so how long a period of time was it between the fall and when you were diagnosed?
We talk about just a couple months.
Couple months. Okay. But the pain, you fell, you thought, okay, this pain's going to get better. It doesn't get better. This young ER doctor says, wait a minute, something is definitely not right here. And that prompted you on your journey.
Absolutely. Because by the time I went to the ER for the third time, I couldn't walk. I was holding the walls. My sister had to help me to walk. And it had got so bad in a matter of a couple of months that it was obvious there was something seriously going on.
And so you're in San Francisco at this time?
No, I came back. I had just come for a short trip.
Got it. Okay. And so you find out this test comes back positive for lupus. You get started on treatment, on traditional Western medicine treatment?
I did. I was sent to a RA and I was put on prednisone as well as hydroxychloroquine.
And how was the recovery?
Well, I was on them for about a year and a few months. And, when you're 18, you're bouncing back.
Right.
You don't know good from bad anymore. And you're just having a good
Right.
time. And at the time, I had started Academy of Dramatic Arts on top of it, or I was going to start. So my major at the time was theater arts. I was living life again. I wasn't thinking about the pains or aches. And in my case, though, it was a little different because I ran into a friend, an older lady who was a cardiac doctor, and to her, being on prednisone, and I was taking 20 milligram daily, and I was taking 600 milligrams of hydroxychloroquine daily too.
Mm-hmm.
And she was horrified by those numbers because I was very petite.
Right.
And of course, in her opinion, it was like, oh my goodness, this medication is terrible. And you've been taking it for so long. You shouldn't be on it for so long. And again, that age, I was like, oh my goodness, this is terrible.
Right.
So
did you follow her advice? You just stopped everything?
I just stopped everything, cold turkey.
Oh, yeah.
Again,
and what was the result?
I was lucky because I had age on my side. So I was able to bounce back and never really get any of the severe side effects that you can get, especially just coming off of prednisone, just like that.
Yeah, 20 milligrams for a year and then nothing. That's dangerous business.
So I don't recommend that to anybody, by the way.
Right.
And and then I stopped taking anything for 20 years.
20 years.
For 20 years. I did.
And did you just sort of have symptoms and not focus on them, or did it sort of put you into a remission?
Exactly. It had put me in remission, but after a couple of years, my symptoms started flaring up again, due to stressors with school or family or whatever else that would bring those flare-ups back on. But I was a very stubborn person, and I kept hearing that lady's voice in my head. But it wasn't because of that. I always had a personality that I wanted to understand what was happening with my physical body. I wanted to understand why my body was doing what it was doing. And it has shown me as well that there were moments where I was up to no good. Remind you, I was a very curious person. So I would meet these people in LA when I studied Academy of Dramatic Arts that were probably not very good people, but I was so curious and I wanted to go where they had invited me, and I would be perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. I wouldn't even have any pain at the time. But the moment I would decide that I was gonna go and meet these people, suddenly my knee would swell up so bad, and I would have such excruciating pain that I was.
So your body was basically telling you, "Hey, this isn't the right path for you."
This.
And what kinds of stuff? Because I know we talked about this before, but what kinds of stuff were you doing during these 20 years in terms of the partying, that kind of thing?
Oh, big time! Drinking a lot. I was smoking cigarettes. I was probably not eating very healthy, staying up late, and trying to ignore, avoid, like if I avoid this,
right.
It goes away.
And do you think so your knee swells up when you're about to go out with these people because your body is saying, don't drink, don't smoke, don't go that direction?
Or maybe that these people were dangerous people.
Yeah.
That something bad would have happened. And it was like, no, we're not going. And it was so bad that I had to call them. It was one particular guy. I called him up and I said, hey, I don't think I can come this weekend. He said, no worries, come next weekend. I was like, okay, maybe I recover till next weekend. And then next weekend will come and my knee was still bad because my mind was still about, let's go. And then by the second weekend, guess what? They weren't interested anymore. And I had stopped being interested myself. So as soon as I no longer thought about going, suddenly, miraculously, the swelling was gone, the pain was gone, like nothing had happened. And I was back up.
Now, at the time, did you make this sort of mind-body connection, or it didn't really occur to you until later on when you started studying Eastern medicine?
Well, I can tell you this. I was always interested in energy. I used to read Stephen Hawking's book regarding time and space. And I was always, ever since I was a young kid, I was always interested in the mysticism of life and that there was more to us than what the eye sees now. And so when my body started to really get loud, I can tell you this: I had zero respect for the physical body. I thought it's not important. What's important is the mysticism, not this physical body. So I think that's probably why I went out of my way to not do anything healthy all those years for myself. And yet my body would communicate and tell me, hey, I'm going to shut you down if you don't pay attention. But then I would, as soon as I felt better, I was like, whoop, off I go.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that's true. I think a lot of lupus patients too, there are those when you're in a flare or when you're having pain or an issue with your body, you sort of get into your fight zone and battle it out. And then maybe when you come out of it, you sort of forget how bad it was and go back to doing some of the things that may have gotten you there in the first place. I think that's fairly common.
Very true. I ran into a friend after 12 years, very recently. Last year, I ran into them. And at the time, I was in a flare, so I did have a lot of pain. And we start talking. And when I say we used to hang out, I used to hang out with them when I was 24. And as we're talking, and he goes like, well, yeah, I'm so sorry that you're still in a lot of pain, just like last when I met you when you were 24. And I'm going, what do you mean? He goes like, yeah, you used to be in pain. I'm like, no. And he goes like, yes. And I'm like, what? I had pain? And I came to realize how much our minds don't want to associate the pain. And I had not associated the pain. I remembered everything else we did. We would go out, have fun, spend time with friends. I remember all of that, but I never remembered the pain.
Well, I guess it's better than the alternative, right? The flip of that is you don't want to only remember the pain too. So I think it is something I think the human body, protects you from that, or the human brain, I guess, protects you from those memories.
I believe so, because if we constantly have to associate our lives with pain, it changes our perspective a lot, and our focus.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and you're going to tell me all about how you got into Chinese medicine and acupuncture and what you're doing now. So we'll be right back after this break.
Lupus LA's Facebook Live Chat series connects leading lupus and health experts with our community to answer the most current and important questions. For more information, visit lupusla.org.
Hello, we are back on the Lupus LA podcast, Your Story, Our Fight. We are talking to Dr. Shabnam Esmailzadeh, and we were talking before the break about your physical journey. And then tell me sort of when you said, okay, I've had this interest in energy and mysticism, et cetera. How did that transfer into this focus on Eastern medicine?
So I was about 26 years old, and I had finished the Academy of Dramatic Arts. I had finished my bachelor's, to say, and I came to a place where I was thinking, what now? Do I continue studying theater arts and become a drama therapist? Because I knew I wanted to help people. My passion has always been people. I'm fascinated by people and humans and how to be human more than anything else, because I don't think we're very good at it. So a friend of mine suggested, hey, why don't we go and get some acupuncture at this place? And as I got to this place that she had told me to go to, I realized it was a school. And I think at that moment, for the first time, it dawned on me that there is such a program. And I had no idea. And I got very interested in it. And I started getting all the information. I started getting in contact with other schools here in California. And I start going and visiting them and kind of get a feel for them. And then there was one particular school in LA called Yosan University that I really liked. And I decided that I was going to see if I could sign up. And I did. And then a few months later on, I started a school. And turns out that it was exactly what I wanted. It was, when you start something and you realize you're in such alignment with it and the information is coming to you easy, you understand it so clearly, and it feels like there are other forces that are helping you to stay right on that. And every day, going to school, listening to the teachers, I started recognizing that my mind was going into all these wonderful places of creativity and connecting with things that you remember how I talked to you as a child. I was very curious and I had all these, senses and it came together. It was interesting how suddenly all of that came together as I was going to school and learning about traditional Chinese medicine, and nothing was foreign anymore.
And how did that manifest itself in your particular lupus? Because I think there's sort of two tracks here, right? You're learning about how to deliver Chinese medicine for other people, but how does that impact your lupus journey?
So starting school, I also started to receive acupuncture weekly. And not only would I go and receive acupuncture, but every time I went in to the clinic, and we have students working on you, and as soon as they would know you have lupus, their eyes will open up because now you're this really interesting,
right,
patient to work on. And I think that's the one time where I understood for the first time, wow, this is a big deal. Having lupus is a big deal. I don't think up to that point I had realized how big of a deal it was. But seeing these other, students and their fascination with it, I start coming to terms with, oh, maybe this is something serious and I need to look at it a little bit more differently than I've been looking at it. And, they would put me on herbs. And like I said, I had these weekly treatments. So during the time I was in school, I was doing great. I was doing really good. For part of it was the excitement of learning this new subject, but all the treatments. And when you're in a school that is so focused on health and wellness, every student is very peculiar about what they're eating,
right,
putting in their bodies, how much sleep they get, how much water they drink, and also how they're doing emotionally.
So it's interesting to me because that means this part in your life, you're surrounding yourself with a completely different type of crowd. and your body's doing really well, and you're not around sort of the bad influences of your youth, if I could say it that way, and that changes you physically for the better.
Absolutely. I stopped smoking cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
That was
That
a
helps.
big one. Yeah. That was a huge one for me to just stop smoking. I wasn't a everyday smoker, but when I went out, I could smoke a whole pack of cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
I would do it. And I had started to develop this extreme chest pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why am I having a chest?
The pack of cigarettes will do it to you.
And I would sit up and sleep. Like, imagine I'm sitting up and sleeping for almost 10 years, but it doesn't dawn on me that maybe it's something you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I stopped smoking cigarettes. And guess what? I was able to lay down and sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think I started to realize, wait a moment, the body is important. Not only is it important, but a lot of us is being communicated through our physical body.
Mm-hmm.
How I feel, what I'm thinking, all of it is constantly expressed in my physical body. And I need to fully start paying attention to it. And one of the big ones for me was when I stopped, or when I graduated, and I started working. And now I'm dealing with so-called real patients. And you're coming across a lot of pain, constantly pain,
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, depressions, chronic pains, all these things. And I realized treating pain alone was never enough, because we're more than our pain. We're looking at what are the triggers, especially for autoimmune. If you have a car accident, we know where the pain is coming from.
Right.
But when you have chronic condition, and especially, when you have autoimmune, the pain is so much different. We are dealing with an extremely different level of pain that, it comes from different sources. Sometimes it's not just one source that contributes to your pain. For example, I've dealt with people that will come to my clinic and be like, such a bad neck pain. I'm dealing a lot with, personal family matters. And as they're talking about these problems they're facing in their family, for example, guess what happens? The neck
pain goes away. Right. Right.
Or I've had people saying, I'm always feeling so bloated and I don't know why. I'm always digestively uncomfortable. And as we go a little bit deeper about what's going on, we realize there's perhaps an issue of absorbing information that is going on in their life. And when we talk deeply about them, the discomfort is gone.
Mm-hmm. So now, tell me a little bit about, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, tell me a little bit about sort of your practice now and your current focus of these emotional aspects of chronic illness. Because I think you're just starting to touch on it, but tell me a little bit about what your focus is. And if somebody comes to see you, kind of what's that experience like?
It's a lot of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of love. We heal when we feel loved, and we feel like we are being seen. So part of what I do when somebody comes into my clinic for the first time is to making sure that they are being heard, they are being seen, and they are being loved. And that throughout the whole session and after, they're always going to feel that. Once you feel that, you start trusting. And once you start trusting, you're allowing information that is stored in your cellular structure to come to the surface. Remember how we talked about everything is energy and how our body is energy. So when I work with people, I started to realize that when I put my hand on their body and they trusted me, that was key, that I could start connecting with their body and reading what was going on with them. and where in the body they were storing specific informations. And when I brought it up to their attention, they will validate it. So then that communication became stronger. And so then when you treat a patient in that level, you're no longer just treating them on a physical level or a mental level or an emotional level, but you're also treating them in an energetic level, which traditional Chinese medicine is all about that. Is the mindfulness of the totality of our existence. Is that harmony, is the balance that we're talking about to bring back within ourselves, is that alignment that we feel completely connected within ourselves, but as well as without ourselves. I am here, I'm right here in this physical body. This body is here to support me, is here to love me, not to punish me or hurt me. So if I'm hurting, let me sit with it for a moment and see, what am I not paying attention? What part of myself I'm not hearing or seeing?
Very powerful.
From a personal experience, this might be a little bit too personal, but I will share it.
That's okay.
In September 28th of last year, I had my very first colonoscopy. And that day is my birthday. And
you picked an interesting day to have your first colonoscopy.
And they wouldn't change it, because if they would change it, it would fall way too late, much later, and it would be too late. So I had a huge problem with it. Not only was it my birthday, but as a child, I had a trauma in my digestive system when I was 5, 6 years old. So anything that had to do with colonoscopy, digestion, I wasn't comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're 5, 6 years old, you may not have the language to really express how horrible your doctor's visits were.
Right.
You were embarrassed, you were ashamed, and you kept it to yourself. So I kept praying, oh, please, something happens so I don't have to do this colonoscopy. But nothing interfered.
Right.
So here I go to my doctor. We have the procedure. Everything goes flawless. My doctor did an amazing job. I woke up from the anesthesia with no bloating, no cramping, no pain. I was doing fabulous. But I remember that as soon as I woke up from the colonoscopy and the anesthesia, I was upset. I was so upset. And immediately I shut myself down. I started talking to myself, and I'm like, come on, Shabnam, it went amazing. It was great. Don't worry about it. Don't even go there. 2 days later on, this finger right here cramped up. I was like this. I couldn't open my fist. I couldn't close my fist. It was so painful and throbby. And remind you that I'm right-handed, so this is my dominant hand. And I couldn't do anything. It was catching my attention like no tomorrow. And I was going to work the next day, and I was wondering, how am I going to work when I can't use my hand? So I remember laying in bed, and I looked at my hand and I said, what am I not seeing? Because this wasn't there. What am I not seeing? And immediately my mind goes to the colonoscopy and how I had shut myself down. And I realized, oh my goodness, why did I minimize how I felt? That came very deep, that came from a person that was 5, 6 years old. And I had, as an adult, shut that part of myself down again. And when I realized that, I started working through the emotions, talking myself through it. And the pain got a little better, but it was still there. By the next morning, as I was washing my face, I suddenly, when you're washing your face and you look up in the mirror and you see yourself, it's like I had that moment of eye contact with myself. I saw myself, I saw the little girl, and I saw the pain I caused her again. And I felt so bad. And I said to myself, I am so sorry that when you needed me again, I shut you down. I am so sorry for what you experienced, and I was not there for you and to listen to your feelings about your experience. Forgive me. 2 hours later, the pain went away.
Wow. That's amazing. It's true. It really is. I think, we talk a lot on this show about how stress affects lupus flares. And I think you just sort of took it one step deeper than that. And I think, the work you're doing is incredible. I'm sure your patients are so grateful for this experience and these treatments. And I'm so glad that it's opened you up to leading a healthier, happier life. And I just want to thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you. I would just leave you with one thing. So whenever we do this type of work, what is important is our intention. Why are we doing it? And what is it that we want to achieve from it? So the focus is tremendously important, and the readiness to be fully and completely open and there for yourself.
That's really, really important. I will say that goes to sort of the way this podcast is. Our intent is to share these stories. Our intent is to open people up to new experiences and new ideas. And I think you have done just that on today's show. So that's a perfect way to tie it up. So thanks very much. Thanks very much, Shabnam.
Thank you for having me here.
On behalf of the entire team at Lupus LA, we thank you for joining the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Please tune in, spread the word, and come back for more inspiring lupus stories. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, wishing you good health, and to always remember, your story is our fight.